He's slimy, but strangely alluring. Standoffish, but there's still a charm in his demeanor. He treats Kiryu with little to no respect from his first to last scene, but even so, there's something about Junoda that a first-time player might find intriguing. He almost feels like the 1988 answer to Shun Akiyama, in the same way that Lee might feel like a Taiga Saejima stand-in. Then it happens. The big reveal. Human trafficking, deceit, betrayal. It all comes out as we learn the true monster within this man that makes us realize the validity behind the red flags we chose to lower. Junoda, in my eyes, is a standout secondary antagonist in Yakuza 0. But that's not saying much, as I could say the same for Kuze, Awano, Mr. Libido, Sagawa... What? Mr. Libido isn't an antagonist? Well, tell that to my once pure and innocent eyes. You might be thinking, wait, if you call almost every villain in a game a standout antagonist, doesn't that mean none of them actually stand out? Well, my sweet, sweet innocent child, I'm talking about the series as a whole. And yeah, there are a lot of standout villains in the series. The pool isn't exactly a small crowd, but tell me something about Ryo Takashima. I feel like Yakuza 0 just had truly great villains. Call it nostalgia, call it rose-tinted glasses that most Yakuza 0 fans tend to have, but whatever you call it, don't call it bullshit. Because those of us that lost our Ryuga virginity to Yakuza 0 don't fuck around, and we will find you for dissing our first. Getting back on track, Yakuza 0 gave us a wide range of villain archetypes that the rest of the series hasn't really seemed to bring back altogether in the neat package Yakuza 0 did. I mean, take the relentless higher-up who, sure, may not match the protagonist in terms of a moral compass, but he's got a unique compass of his own. Kuze presents that RGG archetype in a way that makes characters like Yakuza Like a Dragon's Joe Sawashiro or Judgment's Kyohei Hamura feel familiar, but in a comforting way. We can assume what kind of twisted bond they'll have with our protagonist, the lengths they'll go to follow orders, and the value for honor and respect that they'll hold. And when those expectations are met, we're satisfied little RGG goblins with full fat tummies. But when those expectations aren't met and are instead twisted as the character betrays the archetype, it only serves to enhance our expectations of what a character can be, making Kuze, Sawashiro, and Hamura similar characters, yet maintaining each one's sense of individuality and identity. Take the archetype of the weak schemer. There are many times we've seen this archetype, the man that doesn't get his hands dirty but instead relies on others to carry out his dirty work. They've been on our side, like Tachibana in Yakuza 0, and they've stood against us, like with Eiji Midamura in Like a Dragon Infinite Wealth. But sometimes RGG hides an archetype. Jun Oda is, to anyone who's played through Yakuza 0, a selfish, cruel monster. But to a new player, he seems more like a sleazy gangster with an immense sense of respect for his boss. But then there's fucking Kume in Yakuza Like a Dragon. The man is a chameleon, a right-wing Puritan figure functioning within the Bleach Japan political movement. He doesn't feel like a threat or a villain, really. He just seems pathetic, honestly. Until the end, when he walks in and stabs your newly reunited and redeemed brother in the fucking gut. This little bitch was a schemer all along. He had his goals, and he wasn't gonna get his hands dirty until he had to. And in his eyes, in that moment, he had to. On the topic of schemers, I feel like it'd be smart to mention the two most notable and villainous Yakuza 0 schemers, Sagawa and Shibusawa, brothers in names that start with S and end with Awa. In the Majima half of the game, Sagawa gets Majima into a lot of deep shit. He's Majima's tormentor, but he shamelessly hides behind the hold he has on Majima's balls. I wish I were him. We never even fight him, which, in conversations with RGG fans, has seemingly kept people up at night. But that's what Sagawa is all about. Being so goddamn irritating. Shibusawa is the major antagonist of Kazuma Kiryu's half of the story. But you wouldn't guess it by the end of chapter 1, or 2, or 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. It only really comes about in chapter 10 that he's the main villain. But that's a good thing. He too is a schemer. He's one of the 3 lieutenants, but he's noticeably quiet in comparison to his fellow lieutenants. But as the story progresses, you begin to see him for the snake he is as he rises beyond his colleagues, ascending the ranks with calculated yet subtle enough moves to the point where he's still respecting the Yakuza code of honor. He's not having his competition killed or framing anyone like Awano or Kuze might. He's making promises with the people that can boost him up the ladder, taking the necessary steps with the tools he has as a Yakuza to become a legend. And the only time his scheme is put on pause is when he fights Kiryu at the end, which ends up being his mistake. Shibusawa is a smart son of a bitch to the point that you can't even hate him really. If Kiryu wasn't, well, Kiryu, Shibusawa probably would be running the Tojo clan, and there'd be no legendary dragon Kazuma Kiryu for us to play as by the time the first game takes place. I think Yakuza 0 is a great prequel and starting point because it sets you up with the ultimate chef's salad of what any Yakuza game going forward will be like. And that's true for every element within the game's presentation, and a major part of this is story. And with any story, especially one as big as Yakuza 0, there are villains. Junoda and Mr. Libido are unforgivable monsters who deserve punishment. Kuze and Iwano are men who value honor, but have lost their ways in their ascension of the ranks. Shibusawa and Sagawa are schemers. And going back to the hidden twist archetypes I talked about before, this isn't contained to just 0. A prominent case of this is Akira Nishikiyama, as if you play Yakuza or Yakuza Kiwami first, he's a villain. He was a pretty good dude, but he went down a bad path. But if you play Yakuza 0 first, he becomes one of these secret villains, because to Yakuza 0 players, Nishiki is Kiryu's best friend, his ride or die, his one constant in life. No matter what happens, Kiryu will always find him at Serena on a boring night, and he'll make it all better with some rockin' karaoke and way too many drinks to count. And then he becomes evil! He becomes a schemer. And Kazuma, despite his limited screen time, becomes a much harder blow when we learn about his horrible actions in the first Yakuza. As this father figure we spent an entire half a game trying to protect the reputation and image of, ends up being the very reason our protagonist's life was forever set to be one full of tragedy. Even Reina, who offers Kiryu shelter when he's being hunted by the persistent Dojima family, ends up betraying Kiryu in Yakuza, which makes her all the more tragic as another ally and friend makes the switch into traitor territory. Yakuza 0 plays with archetypes in a way that every prequel probably should. It shows us earlier iterations of familiar characters in ways we don't expect to see them, and introduces new characters that will familiarize us with the direction and essence of the game series we are beginning to delve into. It prematurely plays with our heartstrings in ways we don't even see coming yet, preparing us for encounters, betrayals, and reunions we can't possibly anticipate. Unless you play Kiwami first, in which case fuck you.